If you are one of the millions of people who experience feelings of unworthiness or self-doubt, then this video is for you. Conquering imposter syndrome can be challenging and difficult, but together we can work through some tips in order to help us navigate that issue. And so in this video, we're going to talk about 4 tips for how you might address imposter syndrome. I'm also going to provide a little bonus reflection on how to think about imposter syndrome that might help you as well. I am one of the many people who have struggled with imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm not good enough, like I don't belong, like I'm not going to have enough talent or experience to be able to succeed in the career that I have chosen. And I've talked to so many other people who have had these struggles, these feelings of unworthiness, of self-doubt. And in fact, I've talked to so many people that I really started to question how we talk about imposter syndrome. And I want to start there with a bonus reflection on how we can rethink imposter syndrome in a way that might be more helpful to us. I became really critical of the language of imposter syndrome because I think it really fundamentally puts the issue onto the individual, the imposter, for failing to belong. So the language of imposter syndrome positions the individual, the imposter, as failing to find belonging or affirmation. But with all the people that I knew that felt this, is it really fair to blame every single individual or think of every single individual as being flawed because they haven't found belonging or affirmation? So instead, I started thinking, what if we started thinking of this as actually a problem or larger problem with society or higher education or the organizations that we work for? What if those organizations were failing to make sure that people felt heard, included, and affirmed in what they were doing? And so, of course, if we find ourselves in these really hyper-competitive companies or hyper-competitive industries or industries where there's tons of comparison and even hostility, and that hostility or toxicity even gets rewarded, of course we're going to start feeling like we aren't good enough or question our worth in those industries as we start comparing ourselves to everyone around us. But that's not a failure on our part. That is a failure on the organization or the company or higher education or whatever it may be to make sure that people are feeling affirmed in their talents. And so it's an issue with the system as opposed to the individual. And because this is a systematic issue, know that many other people feel this imposter syndrome, and you are definitely not alone. And that actually brings me to my first tip, which is to embrace the imposter and embrace your imposter community. I recently saw a statistic from the Journal of General Internal Medicine, which found that about 82% of people experience this imposter syndrome or experience these feelings of self-doubt and unworthiness. So embrace that in your community, all these people around you who are experiencing this, but that nonetheless have gotten jobs or gotten careers in areas where they may not feel that they are worthy. So embrace the fact that others think that you have the talent to succeed in this, and embrace the fact that you are among a community of people who are working to navigate these feelings. When I started thinking of this imposter syndrome as a systemic issue, an issue of a large issue in society where people are not feeling like they belong, I found myself feeling belonging with those others who felt the same thing that I did. In other words, we can unite or come together around our feelings of not feeling like we belong or feeling that we don't have the talent that we actually do possess. So if you want to join our little imposter community, take a second to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all the things that we're doing to cultivate community and the skill set that we need to succeed in graduate school, our careers, and in life. As I noticed that other people felt the same thing that I did, that I didn't belong or I wasn't good enough or I didn't have the talent, I started feeling more driven to help other people who were feeling the same thing, which then in turn kind of helped myself, right? Because I started giving people advice about how they could overcome imposter syndrome, which then I could take and use for myself. Which that is actually my second tip, which is to imagine that you are talking with someone else, a friend, a close family member, a younger sibling, and give them advice about how they would handle their feelings of self-doubt or that they didn't belong. Write out some tips for them. Say, here's what you can do. Here's what I think you should do. And then obviously apply those tips to yourself. Have that list nearby you that you can read over whenever you are feeling that sense of being the imposter or self-doubt. So imagine the supportive language that you would use for your friend or sibling or family member. Remember that you probably would be compassionate towards them, so you should be compassionate towards yourself. The third tip that I have for you is to save all the compliments that you get and celebrate those compliments. One easy thing to do is to print off any email that you get that compliments the work that you're doing. Or if you had a really good conversation with a coworker about your work, write that down. Write down how you felt receiving that feedback. If you get written feedback that is positive, positive, make sure that you say that. Keep the evidence of your success and your belonging close at hand when you start to feel like you don't belong or you are an imposter. A part of this is practicing saying thank you when we receive compliments or positive feedback. It is really easy to downplay what we do or to make less of what we do, but we really want to work on accepting the praise that we get. So practice the art of the humble brag. Let other people know about the successes that you've had or the work that you've gotten done, even if they are small successes. It also might be helpful for you to keep a journal or to write out the reasons that you are worthy or the reasons that you matter in the position that you are in. This can be as simple as writing down, I am worthy because I really care about this issue, or I am worthy because I'm constantly improving, or I am worthy because I bring a new perspective to this conversation. What we are trying to do is rewire our brain to think more positively about ourselves instead of thinking negatively or critical about our work. So challenge time. Take a moment to think about one reason why you are worthy or one reason why you belong where you belong. Write that out in the comments below. Post it so you always know you can return to see positive feedback about yourself. We want to start reinforcing positive messages about ourselves now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. And then my fourth tip is to create a plan for improvement. We want to focus on continual small steps in improvement. A lot of times we can get overwhelmed by the sense that we really do not understand what we are doing. And so to combat that, instead of thinking about all the things we don't do or can't do or are not confident about, think about the small steps you can take now to improve your performance. And so think of it this way. When I started this channel, this YouTube channel, the advice I had gotten is always try to improve your video by 1%. And so apply that to yourselves. What is one thing that you can do a little bit better today when we take action to improve our skills slightly that can really help us address our anxiety about our belonging and actually get us to the point where we can see our skills and see our skills improving to help us feel like we do belong, that we do matter, that we can improve and succeed in our career path or in graduate school or in life in general. Track those skills, track those times that you did improve a little bit. Maybe it's something like last week it took you an hour to complete a task, and this week it took you 55 minutes. That is improvement. That is evidence of your success and evidence that you do belong. So for me and this channel, that might be something as simple as I did a little bit better with editing this week, and so I can see my improvement, and I can see that although there are plenty of people who do YouTube videos better than I do, that I'm slowly improving and that I do belong in this space. Of course, when we experience rejection, that imposter syndrome can really come back in full force, and we can really feel that anxiety once again. And so to manage that imposter syndrome, I encourage you to check out our next video about how to navigate rejection in higher education and in life.